Hi guys, welcome to SJ Masterclass, a podcast where two friends and avid readers are working to build an encyclopedia of the universe written by Sarah J. Maas, one series at a time, cross-referencing as we go through the texts. We will discuss themes, characters, plot points throughout the Maasverse, and wherever our conversation leads us. This week, we're starting with chapters 11 through 15 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm Kat, one of your hosts, an ER nurse by day, a cat mom, reader, and knitter the rest of the time.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rev. I'm your other host. I am also an ER nurse, knitter, lifelong reader, and a dog mom. Each episode, we're going to start with a brief review of the chapters that we're focusing on, and then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details after that. This podcast will be extremely spoiler-heavy for both ACOTAR and potentially other SJM works, so listen at your own risk, but we are very excited to be part of the world's best book club, and we hope you guys want to join along. Kat, do you want to get us started with a chapter review, catch us up where Feyre is and what all of our friends are doing?
Absolutely. So last week we ended with Feyre seeing her father outside of her window, beckoning her to call him. We find out that it's not actually her father, it's another fairy called a puka who can shapeshift into whatever a person most desires and then kills them. We learn that Tamlin is not just a fairy or a high fae, he's the High Lord of the Spring Court. And we learned that he didn't actually plan on being the High Lord. Feyre goes hunting with Lucian a number of times. We learned a little bit more about Feyre's illiteracy. We learn a little bit more about Perithian. And we meet a fan favorite, the Suriel. And through the Suriel, we learn even more about Perithian and Highburn. And this chunk of chapters ends with a Naga attack and Tamlin saving Feyre. Rev, why don't you get us started and let's go into those details.
Yeah, I know exactly where I want to start.
Excited.
So Feyre finds herself realizing that she is fulfilling her promise to her mother actually by staying in Prithian and not by leaving. So then we see through maybe 2 chapters or so, there's a few statements here and there where she says, what am I going to do to fill all my time? She says something along the lines of, I feel, who am I now that I don't have this responsibility anymore? So through this identity crisis, is this what makes her more susceptible to being sucked into a toxic relationship?
I love this because one of the things I also wanted to talk about was identity. And I think maybe you're right, because if we're looking at Tamlin, we've already established in the last few episodes that he has all of the power here. He's taken her from her family. He controls who she sees. He controls where she can go. He, at one point, controls what she can eat, what she wears. I mean, there's a lot of power dynamics that are unequal here. And now that she doesn't have the one thing that defined herself, does she fall into this relationship because there is nothing else? What else does she have other than the consistency of this relationship?
And because the thing that she was doing before, providing for her family, that was her identity. That was a strength. It was something reliable in her life that she knew she could depend on. She has no hobbies, so she doesn't have anything else to distract her. She's very interested in painting, but doesn't have access to that yet. And we know that she's now trying to figure out who she is. Is this person now maybe mentally a little bit less strong than what she was before because she now has nothing, including the thing that made her feel strong? So she does not feel very strong anymore.
I feel like this goes back to the Maslow's chart. She's no longer relying or needing to hunt for food. She has her food and her shelter and her clothing taken care of. Now she's trying to educate herself. We see in these chapters that she's trying to learn how to read and write, and she's really hard on herself. There's a reference at some point where after she sees the mural, which I hope we talk about, she has this request that came to the back of her mind. I think it's the request to paint. So now she's finally able to do those things that once you're no longer living paycheck to paycheck and wondering where your next meal is going to come from, saying, well, what do I do with my time? Now I'm going to learn how to read and write. Now I'm going to hopefully enjoy the arts. I'm going to have a better, more fulfilled life.
Those things can only take up so much part of the day.
Sure.
So, I was going to say, so she does still try to spend time with Lucian when she goes on horseback and still carries a bow with her. At one point, she points at something with her bow and then doesn't shoot it because she thinks, why? What's the point? There's already such an excess, almost to the point of waste of food when they get back. So she's also exploring how to make friends with people and be in a real relationship. And so she really only has access to Lucian, Alice, and Tamlin. She doesn't have really any options the way that Lucian and Tamlin are setting her up other than to get in this relationship with her, because she also doesn't know what else out there it is. Like you and I, we knit, we read, we have our pets, we like to do a podcast. There's lots of extra stuff that we do in our life. We also have access to the whole world, and we've been building these things we've been building these hobbies for a long time. And we feel so steady in ourselves. You and I would not need to jump into a relationship or get sucked into a relationship. A, we have that life experience, but B, we have so many things to fill our time. If we were to get into a relationship, they would be lucky enough to get space in our life. But that's not the case with Feyre because of how much time she has.
But also on top of that, at one point, and I think it's in these chapters, it might have been in the last chunk we read, where she thinks, what do these guys even do with their days? Lucian hunts, Tamlin goes off and does things, but what do they do? And I think that is a question we never really find out. Like, what is Tamlin's hobbies? What does Lucian do? He hunts, but he's also on patrol fulfilling Andros's role. So what do they do with their time?
Yeah.
But I'd like to jump from this because these 5 chapters, we learn a lot about the identities of Feyre and Tamlin and Lucian.
Oh,
and with
perfect
our
segue.
With our information that we already know from having read the books, what I'd love to do really quickly is kind of focus on each one of them, because we learn that we are seeing Feyre change. She's no longer waking up every morning, like you said, at the crack of dawn to go hunting. She's waking up when she wakes up. She's accepted in these 5 chapters that she cannot leave and that her vow is fulfilled. And that seems to be that marking change for her. My vow is fulfilled. What do I do? So she starts leaning towards other things. She's also fulfilling another promise to her father, do not come back. But now it's almost like we're starting to see her trauma responses. We are seeing, so the phrase ignorant, insignificant human, she thinks, or something along those lines, she thinks that 6 or 7 times in this book. No one else calls her that. No one calls her ignorant. No one calls her insignificant. But she's got this trauma from Nesta and from her sisters. I'm going to put Elaine on there as well. But she has the nightmare of killing Andros. We also see her when they're in that Naga attack. She's covered in blood. And she's just having these visceral reactions. Hunter Feyre did not pull back at the sight of blood. She's starting to humanize these Fae. But there's this huge change from the Hunter that we see in chapters, let's just say 1 through 7, to who she is now. And I think this is her changing point. What do you think about her changes?
I think that it is interesting when you say the blood around her freaked her out, because in chapter 1, she skins a big wolf and hacks up a deer so that she can take it home. No issues whatsoever. This is part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is her meeting her needs. Now that her needs are met, is it that the blood is freaking her out because she's like, I don't have to do this because I already have food? And it's not like a killing. It's not a meeting of a need. It's almost more scary because she's being attacked. She's not attacking something else. But yeah, I can see that now that her needs are met, she is so free to feel instead of just having to act.
Well, and you kind of think of, take the two of us, right? We're both ER nurses. We see and have to do a lot of stuff that most people would not go into without flinching back.
Or most people would not even see in their lifetime.
Right. Like, we see blood, we see death, we see life, we see everything. But before you were a nurse, did you have those responses? And when you are out in public, is it the same response, or is there kind of this shift in our mentality? Oh, go for your pin.
It's comparable. Feyre's reaction and where she's at when she is meeting the Naga, that situation that you were talking about. What happens when you and I see somebody have a seizure at work? We know what to do. We set up suction. We go get the appropriate medications. We have all the protections in place. We all work together as a team and fix this problem. If I were to be at home, back at home, and my sister were to have a seizure in the middle of my mom's house, it would be entirely different. You would see trauma response rev, because that is not a controlled situation for me. Maybe that's what it is she had so much control. She was the person who was in control of their food, in control of the money. She was basically the leader of the household, right? And then now she goes to this uncontrolled place. And so that's also part of that trauma response, is dealing with, I'm no longer the person in control. My needs are being met. I have time to feel. And it's not the same when it's outside of that controlled environment that she's used to. So she's responding to a new environment, but also having the opportunity, the open headspace to experience and feel and think about all the bad things that have happened to her. Like you said, her trauma response from even her sisters. She keeps hearing Nista. Go for your pin.
It even goes back to, in these chapters, when Tamlin says, you don't like to hunt, then why do you go out with Lucian? And she's like, I had to hunt when I was with my family. I didn't have a choice. If I didn't hunt, we didn't eat. So it's this completely different set of parameters of then versus now. And now those parameters are gone. She does not have the structure of waking up every day. And I wonder, and what I want to pay attention to is when we get to the night court, there's almost like a forced structure that is put on her. For 1 week, she has to go to the night court, and Rhys makes her learn how to read and write. So she is getting back a structure that I don't think I realized in any of my rereads that he was doing for her. And I don't think he realized, and I don't think Feyre realized, but it becomes this thing where she's, if I recall, when she's in the spring court, starts counting down the days until she's going to the night court, and then it's the week. She gets her structure back.
And so far we've said 2 things. You have said 2 things that lead to other points. So I'm writing them down so I don't forget them, because I want you to finish your identity points with Lucian and Tamlin as well.
So let's move on to Tamlin then.
I'm getting this ready because I know we're going to talk about something I'm going to say. So I'm getting it ready.
We talk about or learn about so much from him. So we learn that he is the High Lord. We learn that he has trained to be a soldier, that someone else was supposed to be High Lord, because he says, He was supposed to be a soldier for his father or others. And we learn that he has made some decisions. But we also learn that he's got anger issues, maybe reinforcing those anger issues. But in the last chunk that we read, both Alice and Lucian talk about his mercy. In this chapter, on roughly page 100, 101, Lucian and Feyre are talking about Tamlin going for the bogey, and he starts talking about, nope, he has to do this by himself. If you go and try and help him, he might slash you as well. If you try and help him afterwards, he might slash you out of rage. And you just sit and, if you read what he's saying, it is so toxic. Who's this guy? And we learn about the power dynamics of the Spring Court, and I think we also see them from the Autumn Court, because Lucian is coming from the same kernel of anger. Go.
That's really interesting about Lucian coming from kind of a same place of a lot of angry people. So what I wrote down here, you're kind of talking about it, and it was one of my next points that I wanted to bring up. We learn that he doesn't want to be in this position because he was trained as a warrior. So I'm going to read this aloud because I think I have it best with the way it's typed. He was warrior trained. Is this why Tamlin has anger issues? There's an heir and a spare. He was trained to be the spare, the warrior. He was not trained to be the heir. He wasn't trained to keep his calm and be a high lord. So as we talked about on the last episode, he's always walking around, claws halfway out, right on the verge of rage. He is trained to react and fight. So when Tamlin has a response, his response is react and fight. I think because he was trained to be a warrior and not trained to be a leader, that's why he is so toxic. He was trained to be a fighter. He was trained to take another person down, to be the best of the best. That's kind of what I think, yeah.
Well, and I think this ties into how I am viewing Baron, who is the High Lord of the Autumn Court, Lucian's father, kind of. The man who raised Lucian.
Ish. Almost.
But I don't think you can make the argument that Baron is not a villain in this story. He has raised his family with an iron fist. Everything is cruel. Everything is for the court. And whereas Tamlin, he was perhaps not raised that way. We don't ever really learn much about his father. Although I think his father was the one who wanted to kill Rhys's mother and sister. I could be wrong about that. But Baron is the villain. Tamlin, for these first 15 chapters, is supposed to be the savior. Where he's showing little glimpses of kindness. So kind of like what you said in last episode, where he's kind of becoming this romance character, this romance hero, but his anger and his lack of control are always under the skin. It's literally, the claws are always coming out. Yeah.
When you talk about these few chapters, he's supposed to be the romance character. SJM has written that in. Feyre sees multiple times over multiple pages that they have something in common. 2 quotes. This is what happens when you're responsible for other people's lives. And this is what it is like to bear the weight of caring for others. SJM is building him also into a romance hero by having him have these things in common with Feyre. They've both been forced into this situation where they have to take care of other people. So we're building this soft side of him as well, that even though it's a very aggressive response sometimes, and he's very angry and he's very controlling, he's doing it from a place of being forced into this place of having to care for others. The only way he knows how to take care of other people is to react and fight and be protective. That's what he was trained to do. So while I do see him as toxic, and I don't think he's healthy in a place when we get further along with Feyre, when I'm reading it in this fashion, in this mindset, I am seeing why he is the way he is. It's I don't want to say it's PTSD. It's not a trauma response to a very stressful thing that happened to him, but it is a lack of training of reacting any other way and reinforcement training of acting in a way that is violent and protective and fighting.
Do you think that this lens that we are describing Tamlin through is going to be the kernels of his redemption arc?
I like that. If there's going to be a redemption arc, it has to be through this version of, I'm sorry, I had not grown enough yet and I hadn't learned enough yet. And I look back on myself and see, and I want to grow from that. If that's the redemption arc, then I take it.
I feel like Feyre is not the character who he can be redeemed through, because he is a fighter. He is a warrior. She is a warrior in her own sense. She has had to fight starvation. She's had to fight off other hunters. She has had to fight off the wolves that are in the territory. But I could see him being redeemed by the softer sister, by the sister who might be able to see through all of his toxicity and see the man who is underneath. We get him at the very end when Tamlin gives a kernel of his power to save Rhys. He says something like, I just want you to be happy, Feyre. He helps her escape. Like, there is these little kernels, and we see that change happening. But for the Feyre arc, it's too little too late. Take out the fact that she's found her mate. It is too little too late, but it's not too little for someone else.
I do also want to revisit the point that I made last week, which is we need to be very careful as women when we talk about giving someone a redemption arc and staying with someone who's toxic for too long. I don't know what the magic recipe is. I just want to keep calling to it, because what if you think you are in a relationship where you are going to get a redemption arc and literally you're just staying with somebody who's toxic? I don't know what the magic recipe is. I'm just sending out the warning to women.
Well, and that goes into my final point about Tamlin, which is we have all of these actions in this chapter chunk, but he ends it on a lie. When she starts asking questions about the blight, and he says to her, this is on page 111, I have nothing but time. He says it's because he's immortal. And this blight or this curse will cauldron, hopeful or something, will move on. He does not have time. He has a total of 50 years and we're in the 49th year. Otherwise, they don't get their powers back.
Are you saying he's just trying to play it cool?
Yes. I think he's trying to show a lack of a weakness. Yeah, I've got all the time in the world. I'm not under any stress. But he is, and we know that because Lucian is the one who's calling him out constantly in this chapter and in the previous chapters.
My brain was still focused on the redemption arc thing and what you were saying about Elaine and being soft, and what I said about not knowing the magic recipe of staying with somebody who gets a redemption arc versus staying with someone who's toxic. Here's what I think the magic recipe is. He does get a redemption arc, but it's not with Feyre. Like you said, it could be with someone softer, like Elaine, that brings it out with him. So this guy does get a redemption arc, but Feyre's not stupid enough to stay with him because he's toxic right now. He has to go off by himself, do his own thing, be alone, run around in beast form for a year or something. Yeah. That he's just going completely wild and lets his house go to trash. And then he figures out what he needs to do with his life and then gets a redemption arc with a different woman. Maybe that's the magic recipe, is you don't stay with someone who's toxic. It doesn't mean they can't heal themselves, but it means you don't have to stick with the toxic person. This person can heal themselves and they get their redemption arc with someone else. Wow, that actually kind of makes sense to me.
You don't have to heal everyone. You don't have to fix everyone, but most people can be fixed. You don't have to be the one doing it. Feyre does not have to.
Yeah, he has to. He has to fix himself. And then he gets the joy of being with someone else who's maybe more befitted to him, or maybe that he's now better for and can participate and enjoy the relationship more. Yeah, you don't have to stay through it. You don't have to fix someone.
Yeah.
And if they fix themselves in the future, then you get to smile and say, I'm really happy for you. And you don't have to be part of it.
I think that would be a good transition in just so we can touch briefly on Lucien, who, again, this read is my Lucien read. He is just standing out on every page for me. But the things we learn about him are that he is, or we can imply, we know, but through this part of the book, we can imply, he is the banished son of the Autumn Court. He is no longer with his family. But when we see this little snippet of his room, it's a little piece of the Autumn Court. It's their colors, and we see what he could be. But we also, if we're thinking this on a grander scale, he's also the banished son of the Day Court, because we know that Helion is his father. This is his only place right now.
That is actually leading right into my next point that I wanted to talk about. Tamlin and Lucien's friendship.
Yes.
How do the types of interactions that they have, especially from pages 107 to 109, show what kind of relationship they have? You mentioned last episode that Lucien is upset that Tamlin sent in Andros because Lucien wanted to try and handle this a different way. In addition to that fact from last chapters, in this chapter, we see Lucien being like, I want to know what you're doing. What are you doing right now? And Tamlin's like, well, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? You're the one that keeps hanging out with her. You're the one ruining my Beauty and the Beast chances. You're ruining this. And Lucien says something like, you can't even fake this anymore. Like, do you even want us to get our masks off? Like, what are you doing? And so while we can understand a lot about a relationship between two people, whether it's a friendship or a romantic interest, by the way that they get along and the things that they have in common, you can also tell a lot about their relationship by what they argue about and how they fight with each other, right? You can good fight and you can bad fight with people. You can try and be productive and get to an end, or you can just point fingers. And I don't know which person is doing which. I think they're both trying to get to a solution. I think they're both pointing fingers at each other. Lucien ends up rudely declining to hang out with Feyre and is insistent that she go hang out with Tamlin. I don't think that's for Tamlin's friendship. I think he's doing that to get to the end game of Beauty and the Beast. But I want to know what you think about their relationship and how Lucien ends up leaving eventually, and we know everything that happens in all the rest of the books, but what does this set up for what we think the background of their relationship is and leads to everything that happens in the future? Go for your pin and an answer to my question.
It's the same. I think it is very telling that Lucien is comfortable enough to be calling Tamlin out. Tamlin, who we know has anger issues. Tamlin, who nobody else can speak to like this. Lucien is the one who is saying, hey, what are you doing? Hey, stop being an idiot. Hey, I'm going to fight against you. We should do this. We should do this. He is the one who also seems to be the hope of the Spring Court right now. We're going to backtrack a little bit. I've been distracted because my cat just jumped on the bookshelf behind me. So
Good old
I'm
Bill.
making sure it doesn't fall on top of me. But with what we see from Lucien is He's the only one who can say these things to Tamlin, but also he is the hope of the Spring Court, I think. And I think you could make that argument strong because he says to... It's fine. He says to Tamlin, I only stayed with you because of hope. And we see this repeated throughout the book. Feyre's father, hope, you have to have hope to endure. That's essentially what Lucian has been doing for 49 years. He's had hope that they will fix this. But with Lucian, we also have, I think he's the only one who says it primarily, but at least this is the first time where when she's overhearing them, he talks about Tamlin's heart of stone. We know that that is vital to the end curse. And we know that she's eavesdropping. We know that they can probably hear her or smell her. But I feel like this is one of those foreshadowing points because Tamlin says to her at the very end, it's on page 110, hopefully with all of your eavesdroppings, you can learn something important. Maybe you already have, pay attention. She's been told multiple times, pay attention around you, use your senses, eavesdrop when you can, because we can't tell you anything. Like you've said, it's the Fight Club Beauty and the Beast rules of we can't tell beauty of the curse. Yeah, go for your pin.
That is my actual next point that I have on my list to talk about as well, is her eavesdropping. And the thing is, how do they not know? Of course they know. They have Fey hearing. Mm-hmm. Tamlin even calls her out at least once, and he's like, why don't you just come out? I know you're there. They are trying to do their best, I think, to let her know that they are trying to do something good and they are not trying to hurt her, but they also can't tell her about the plot. So they're doing their best knowing that she's eavesdropping to give that information out almost in a coded way or a disguised way, which, if you think about it, is actually kind of funny because then later on, Rhys calls them out for being like, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Not that they were trying to let her out, but like they've been trying to make her feel so comfortable and not in trouble and trying to let her know in disguised ways that they're not doing something bad, that they're doing something good. This leads into my very next point, which was Feyre eavesdropping. I have underlined, how do they not know that she's there? They do have to know that she's there. They have Fey hearing. I think what they are doing is they are trying to tell her without telling her that they mean her well, that they're not trying to harm her, and that they are trying to do something good, that they're here for her. I don't know if they're actually trying to let her in on the B&B plot, but I think it's part of the B&B plot. When they let her know that they have nothing but good things planned for her and that she doesn't have to feel in danger, that makes her feel comfortable enough. Maybe she gets in this place where she can fall in love with Tamlin. So I think all this disguised speech and almost coded speech that they use with each other is on purpose. If they didn't know she was there, they could just speak plainly. So they are trying to tell her in some subdued way.
Yeah, I agree. I think this also goes against what she's thinking, where she's constantly thinking she's ignorant, insignificant, she's stupid. But this is one of the times when Tamlin is saying, use your brain, listen to what we're saying, listen to what's happening behind us.
I have a new point.
Yeah.
Feyre ends up going to a library. Of course she does. Thank you, SJM. Feyre ends up seeing a huge painted mural. Of course she does. Thank you, SJM. What I want to talk about is how in romantasy in general, not just SJM, all of our book heroines, all the books I'm thinking of,
yep,
they always love going to a library. They always love reading. All of them are they're all book girlies, right? But how does Feyre get to be a book girly? She doesn't really know how to read. Our hero, our main male lead character, gets Feyre into being a book girly by teaching her how to read. The entendre, double entendre, one on top of the other in this very first book is so big for romantasy girl readers. And my question is, and you can address your pin, why do you think SJM presented it in this way, that our main Hawkeye teaches Feyre how to read so she can go to libraries, and Nesta can go to libraries later and teach Feyre how to read about other Hawkeyes in romantasy, because we know that's what she's going to do.
Yeah, of course she is. My pin is actually my point in my answer to this. Is I think this is going to change how I read romantasy. I think we take the trope of the female character loving books and loving specifically romance books as this becomes her sanctuary almost. Tamlin and Lucien don't come into here unless it's Tamlin coming in, checking on her, and leaving. We view this, the library almost becomes a sanctuary for these female characters. It certainly does for Nesta. And it might not necessarily be as strong for Feyre, but I think that this is the one place outside of her room that she keeps going back to and trying to learn. She does it in the Night Court. But then if we look at the library in the Night Court, that is quite literally a sanctuary for abused females.
Oh, it literally is. That, God, it's so good. Oh, all of the girls in the library. Oh my God. That's an incredible point, Kat. Wow. The big spiral library that goes down.
And men are not allowed.
Oh my God. Unless they're invited. Oh my God. I have goosebumps. Kat, that's so good. I also want to point out that in this library/study right here, the one that's in Springcourt, is the one library that we see that has this huge painted mural that Feyre is so interested in painting. And so that's why this becomes her sanctuary. This was written to be Feyre's place. It's Feyre's sanctuary. And I never even thought about the library being the female sanctuary. Of course it is. It all ties together. It's so good. Go. I want to hear your point. It's so good.
I didn't even think about the painting, her love being in the place that she finds sanctuary. I love that. But I want to talk about the mural. I want to talk about two things. I think it's really interesting that the hairs on the back of her arms rise when she gets to the Night Court, not the Winter Court. And we are meant to think that this is from fear because she pulls away, she gets scared from it. Or is this possibly recognizing something in her, something deep inside of her? Go.
She says on page, I believe it's 116, never, ever go north when she sees the Night Court. She is kind of afraid. I have ha 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 written after it in my notes that she's like, never ever go north. But also a little interesting is that when we get things pouring out of the cauldron, it all starts out in this black starry sky. And then we get to all the other things that happen in this mural way down the road. Does Prythian possibly start or originate in Night Court?
Oh. And we know from Crescent City 3, when they're in ACOTAR, Bryce is in ACOTAR, and they have the hologram of the woman comes up, and Azriel says, she looks exactly like Rhys's sister. Do you remember?
Who's in the hologram? No, I don't ever remember anything.
Well, we'll get there. But keep that thought. Because okay. I think that those tie in together. But I was going to say, do we think because all of Prythian is coming out of a cauldron, do we think that the mother is related to the three-faced crone, the three-faced witch from Throne of Glass? Do we think that Prythian comes from a witch?
And if Feyre and her family, i.e. Elaine in the very, very end, but Nesta leading up to it and Feyre starting it all, if they are descendant of witches, if they are the ones that have to save Prythian.
And they are cauldron blessed because Elaine and Nesta, at least, go into the cauldron and come out, whereas the queen who goes into it comes out an old lady.
Oh my God. I just thought of something. Oh,
Say it.
I'm going to stutter a little bit because I'm trying to put all these thoughts together, right? The sword that they have in Crescent City is star blessed. Nod to Night Court. Also, there's Rune. Also, it's the cousin or the sister or brother sword, whatever you would call it, of Truth Teller. And they have to go back and get them and unite them. I also have this one point that talks about, is Feyre, when it has to do with the Suriel. So I'm going to start talking about the Suriel, but get back to my point. She says, stay with the High Lord. He says, stay with the High Lord. And then he says, return to the High Lord. Why does he say return to the High Lord if he's talking about Rhys? So are these people born again and born again and born again? They start out as Aelin and Rowan, then they become Feyre and Rhys. Eventually they get to be Bryce and Hunt. And that's why these starborn people are all coming from Night Court and have access to use these magical weapons, and they are witches. And that ends up what leads Elaine to be able to fix everything in Akatar. That was my train of thought that I had to spit out. Sorry.
That's okay. Before we get to the Suriel, I wanted to mention one last thing about the mural, which is, while Feyre is looking at it, she thinks that in the heart of the map is a stone mountain, a heart of stone. Literally, Prythian has a heart of stone. So does Tamlin. I just wanted to put that out there on the pod, see what anybody else reading. Have I gone too far? Have I Charlie Dayed it? I don't know.
Well, if Tamlin, Redemption Arc, and Elaine are the ones who save Prythian, then would it not make sense that Tamlin's heart is the heart of Prythian?
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going there. I'm doing it. You can't stop me.
I won't stop you.
Okay.
All right, let's move to the Suriel.
I didn't mean to bring up the Suriel. I was just trying to say about where he says return to the High Lord, because that was one of my future points. And then that leads to, have they been together before? Why would he say stay with the High Lord, and we later find out that's Rhys, and then on the next page say return to the High Lord, but then be talking about Tamlin but not make it clear? So is he still talking about Rhys, that she needs to return to Rhys? Did they know each other in a past life? And the Suriel says he is older than Prythian. He's been around longer than Prythian. He would know. Can he recognize mates? Will someone end up asking him, who is Elaine's mate? What's your theory?
I have a theory. It came to me while I was listening to it this morning. So, what if we have multiple paths? You know, when there are seers in books, usually will be like, you have one of two paths. If you go this way, this happens. If you go this way, this happens. The Suriel says to her, stay with the High Lord. Do not ask questions. Everything will be righted. But she does ask questions. She doesn't ask questions of the Suriel anymore, but she asks Alice questions, and she tries to figure out what the heck is going on with these masks. My theory is, if she had just rolled over and accepted the fact that she was Tamlin's human woman, they could have defeated Amarantha, because she would have fallen in love with him, and that would have broken the curse. Instead, she goes deeper, starts asking questions, and she crosses into Under the Mountain. And that's where she meets Rhys. And now her path has gone in a different direction. And now she has a mate as opposed to a husband.
It's kind of like what you and I are doing. We're not just taking this at face value. We're asking questions.
Right. But she looks deeper, and eventually Alice says, well, it's already happened. I might as well be able to tell you this is what you had to have done, and you didn't do it because you went home. But then she goes back to try and save them all. If she had not gone home, if she had just stuck with the High Lord as the Suriel told her to do, and you can view this almost as a promise because it's the same language that she uses for her mother. Stay with them and protect them. Stay with the High Lord and don't ask questions. But she breaks that promise to the Suriel because she goes home because Tamlin lets her go home.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of almost feel like it's people telling a woman what to do, and she's just like, middle finger. don't tell me what to do. I'll get there or I won't. But you're not going to tell me what to do. I'll find my own path or I'll die trying, but don't tell me what to do.
But she does do what they tell her to do. She does what her mother tells her to do.
She does in that she stays in Prithian, but she doesn't do what the Suriel tells her to do.
No. She stays with what her mother says, stay with them, meaning the family, and protect them or provide for them. She does do that. She's pulled because of the treaty. It's not her choice. But she chooses not to follow what the Suriel says because I don't think she views that as a promise, even though it's the same language that her mother used.
And we did say we wanted to cross-reference promises as part of that one page of our Google Doc. I don't think it's a promise. I don't think it's a promise of what she says to the Suriel. I think the Suriel is trying to... I don't know why he's guiding her, actually. Maybe just to keep her safe because he kind of likes her or something. I don't know why he's telling her what to do. Why would he want to keep her safe? Honestly, he shouldn't care. But I don't tell her what to do. Don't tell Feyre what to do is kind of what I'm saying. She does follow what her mom tells her, but that's also because she wants to. She wants to be a better person. When the Suriel tells her, just go here, she doesn't do what he tells her to do. She does follow her mom's perspective because she realizes if she doesn't do what she does, everyone's going to die. She wants to make sure her family doesn't die.
She doesn't want to. She needs to.
Well, she has a choice. She could not do it, and she chooses to do it.
Yeah, but that's different than wanting to.
But I mean, she wants to let them die, or she wants to keep them living. She wants to keep them living, so she does this because she chooses. She could choose 1,000 things, but her two choices are limited. She doesn't have access to go to college. She doesn't know how to read. What her options are, she can choose to do this or she can choose to do this. She chooses to keep her family alive. Of the two options she has, she wants this one versus this one of the two that she has. When the Suriel tells her stay with the High Lord,
she agrees to it. She says, yeah, I will.
And
she remembers it. And she does stay with him until he says you can go.
Anyway, that's that.
But kind of talking about her family, and this is bouncing around, can we quickly talk about the Puka?
Yeah.
First, I've got a lot of feelings about the Puka in general because I feel like what SJM has done in this book, at least, I'm going to be trying to pay attention to it throughout, is she is kind of nitpicking myths from around the world. The Puka is a Celtic and English myth. The Naga is Hindu and Buddhism. But she kind of takes them and just forces them into what shape she wants. Traditionally, the Puka is a shapeshifter, trickster, but also is benevolent to certain people. But in this world, it changes shapes to what the person desires and then takes them off and kills them. Or that's at least what Tamlin tells us. But we see her father, and then it turns into ash arrows and a bow. Then it turns into food, and then it turns into her sisters weeping. What does that mean? Is that one of those just deep desires she doesn't want to address? It's not her sisters reaching out for her. It's not her sisters clothed well. It's her sisters weeping. Go.
I think it's exactly the same as her father showing up. The Puka shows up as her father showing up, and then the Puka turns into her sisters weeping. She wants to feel that her family appreciates what she did. She wants to feel that they love her. She wants to feel wanted and that people would be sad if she was gone.
I think what I would love to have seen is a better description, because her sisters weeping can mean so many things. They're crying because she's not with them. They're crying out of fear because there's no one bringing them food. They're crying because a number of reasons. Yeah, what's your pin?
The Puka turns into what you want. She wouldn't want them crying because they were hungry. She would want them crying because they would miss her or they need her.
Are you sure? Because at one point when she is on the mare leaving in chapter 5, I believe it is, she thinks my family is going to miss me. Also, I kind of want them to die because then they would know that I didn't take care of, like I wasn't there to take care of them. there is that dual side of her.
Yeah, but I feel like kind of what we were just talking about, like don't tell a girl what to do, she's going to do what she wants to do. She chose to continue feeding them because she wants them to live. If she really didn't care, she could have done anything else. So I think that it's not that she really hopes they dies. That's this not having any needs met and being an unhealthy person and just being like, I hope you guys appreciate me. But I doubt that she actually wants them to all die. That is an immature Feyre. She's speaking from a place that has no needs met, and it's so basic. Like, I hope everyone just appreciated me. I hope they die. Like, again, 5-year-olds say that all the time. They don't, if they knew what they were saying, they wouldn't actually mean it. You know what I mean? So I think that what she wants is her father shows up as if to rescue her. That shows what her first thought is. That's what she wants. If the puka shows up as her father rescuing her, what she actually wants in her heart is to be loved by them and want them to be sad that she's gone and want them to come and rescue her. So I think her sister's crying has to do with missing her or feeling sad that she's gone, not because they're just crying because they don't have food.
I think we'll have to agree to disagree. So the quote is on 45. I alternated between a wretched smugness at the thought of my family starving and thus realizing how important I was, and a blinding agony at the thought of my father begging in the streets. So even here, it's agony over her father. She desperately wants her father's love. Versus the family starving without her input.
A lot of people say things when they're angry. It doesn't mean that they mean them.
Speaking of family,
let's speak about it.
I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on that. I think it's really interesting. We do learn a little bit more about Feyre's illiteracy, and I don't know how I have skipped over this every single time I read it. Not only was she not taught, but her mother purposely didn't teach her. There's a line in this where it says her mother did not hire them a governess. And it was her sisters who continued that mentality of thinking that the schools were beneath them. And she makes a point of saying both sisters. This isn't just a Nesta thing. Again, we're kind of lumping Elaine into this, even though I think as the books go on, Elaine becomes this protected little princess. But my mother sorely neglected our education, not bothering to hire a governess. And after poverty struck, and my sisters who could read and write deemed the village school beneath us, and they didn't bother to teach me. That's on page 113, chapter 13. I almost wonder if Feyre was ever going to learn how to read. Was she ever going to get any kind of education? The money didn't help because she wasn't getting it when they were rich.
Also, she is embarrassed to ask them. She says it'd be too humiliating to ask them. I want to know why she feels humiliated or why she thinks it's humiliating. Is it because she thinks that Elaine and Nesta would be even more mean to her if she asked and said, I want to better myself? Or is it just humiliating of the basis that, like, you guys got something I didn't. Why did our parents like you better than me?
I think it comes down to her thoughts of Nesta, because Nesta is always that voice in her head who's criticizing her. And I think if she shows, this is a similarity she has with Tamlin. Any sign of weakness is something to be attacked. Tamlin's a warrior. He does not show weakness. He's always claws out. Feyre cannot show weakness. It's why she doesn't let him help her write the letter. She can't show him how ignorant she is. I wonder how much of that is in her head versus how much Nesta actually said and did to her. Because all of this is in her head.
All from Feyre's perspective.
All from Feyre's perspective, but also even the times when Tamlin's like, yeah, you did what you had to do. Your focus was on hunting. It wasn't on education. She takes that as, well, you're ignorant. You aren't enough. Go.
There is a part where he says, no wonder you became adept at so many other things. Yeah. That almost, depending on what mindset you have hearing that, That could sound really derogatory.
And that's how she takes it.
Right.
But speaking of...
I don't think he means it like that.
I don't think so. I think he's going to take it as... I think he's taking it as a compliment to her. You didn't learn how to read, but you learned how to hunt and you kept your family alive.
Are you going to talk about why Feyre likes Lucien and doesn't like Tamlin next?
I certainly can.
Okay, let's go there since I just mentioned it. I thought you might have been going there because we've been like this so intertwined on how our points have been going. So I wondered if you were going there. Okay, here we go. Why does Feyre like Lucien and not like Tamlin? She says it's because Lucien is so much more real than Tamlin. But honestly, she's known these people for a week. She does not know Lucien. She does not know Tamlin. And I know that sometimes Lucien is like, I would gut her. He says things like that. Or he's like, you're a fake killer. And he uses maybe more abrasive language towards her. And then Tamlin has said things in the past like, you should feel lucky you're being served by a fae. So Tamlin has this fake aspect of, I am going to serve you food to make you like me, even though she doesn't know about Fight Club. But she knows that something is up. She can pick up on this weirdness of him being nice for some fake reason, even though she doesn't know what it is, because initially she thinks they all just want to kill her and they all hate her. Then Tamlin's being this fake nice. Lucien is not being fake nice, so she likes him more. But can I just say one point honestly? She has known them for all less than a week. She doesn't know anyone. She obviously doesn't realize that both of their endgame goals are to make her love Tamlin, and she doesn't see through. Maybe she sees Lucien's irritation with her and doesn't believe in Tamlin's fakeness, but we also know she doesn't know either of them because both of them are trying to make her fall in love with Tamlin to break the curse. So she's wrong.
I think she views Lucien as someone who's presenting himself without a mask. He has never hidden who he is to her. He's angry that she killed his friend, and he shows his anger the first time that they are together. He sees through her lies. When the first time they go hunting, he's like, so when are you going to ask me how you can go back home? He doesn't, excuse the language, he doesn't bullshit around her. Tamlin is the one who, nope, we're going to stop talking because she's here. Nope, we can't talk about that. He is hiding from her. And I think she realizes, even when he is arguing with Lucien, he has that rage and she thinks about it and she sees it, but then he's so calm talking to her. There are two sides of Tamlin, and she is only ever presented with the one side, whereas Lucien shows exactly who he is, and he's not happy about it.
Okay, but what about the fact that he is still supporting Tamlin in his Beauty and the Beast plot and not being honest with her about what their end game is? He's not being 1,000% honest with her, which I think proves my point that she is inexperienced and wrong in thinking that she likes Lucien and that she knows him, or that he's being more honest with her. He's only slightly more honest with her. I honestly believe that she's a fool for liking either of them because she doesn't know either of them. She should be more guarded and more protective of herself.
I think there's certain things he cannot say. At some point we learn, and I think it is Alice who says, we couldn't tell you things because of the curse. So he can't tell her things. He is forbidden. The curse won't let him. So yeah, he's going to lie to her around it. And he is supporting her to be with Tamlin, but he's not hiding who he is. When we see him later on, he's still the same Lucien.
Question for you. If Fight Club rules didn't apply and Lucien could tell Feyre, we need you to fall in love with Tamlin so you can break this curse, do you think he would have said that?
I don't, because then it would never be proven if it was actually love.
Exactly. So there's always some amount of deception at this point in time from this version of Lucien that we get that proves my point that she doesn't know Lucian as well as she thinks she does, and she likes him, and I don't think she should like anyone. I think she's very naive at this point and shouldn't like any of these people. She shouldn't trust any of them. It doesn't mean she has to be afraid of her life. She realizes that she's safe, but she shouldn't like one and dislike the other because their end goals are kind of the same. Lucian and Tamlin kind of want the same thing.
But Lucian has not gone around pulling out claws. He hasn't used his magic to force her to sit down and eat. He hasn't been as controlling with his feyness as Tamlin.
I think as a person, I wouldn't care as much about one manipulation technique versus another manipulation technique versus my overall anger that I was trying to be manipulated by multiple people, regardless of what the technique is.
But if you are in a situation where you only know/see a handful of people and only 2 of those people have any actual power, this is the whole Stockholm syndrome, right? Like, what is her option?
I don't know. I just know me. I know my option would be like fight everyone and hate everyone. We both know me. That's probably what my option would be.
Yeah, I don't think she has. If she fights everyone, where's she going to go? She can't go into the forest. The Bogey and the Puka are there. She can't go home. Otherwise, her family will die. That's what the Suriel has told her.
Yeah, but if you're talking about playing the smart move, like Tamlin, not Lucian, Tamlin's the High Lord. She's not doing this to play the smart move.
Well, but she just found out he's the High Lord. Up until then, he was just some high fae. You could argue that there was a sparking between Lucian and Feyre. She was choosing to go with him. Maybe she was starting to have feelings for him instead. We just never see it because that's cut off real quick.
She likes a spicy guy.
Yes, she does.
I mean, who doesn't? Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe that's a spark, that was going there. Okay, I'll go there.
I've got one more point, and then I've got some foreshadowing things I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But the point I wanted to make is there is a line that he being Tamlin, says twice to Feyre. You're not what I expected from a human. In the first time, it's when they're having this very sweet, she's tending to his wounds. It's this very kind moment. The next time, he says it in anger. And it's worth noting the mirror image of Tamlin, basically. We're getting the good side and the bad side with this one line. And that kind of feeds into her, I'm just a human. What are your thoughts?
I think there's part of Tamlin that is surprised when he meets Feyre and actually sees that she is such a strong personality and ends up less surprised that she killed Andrés. I also think that he's a little bit disappointed in that he was kind of hoping she was stupider, that he could just fool her, and that she would fall for everything and make this easy. That's my opinion of his 2 different opinions of like surprised you could kill Andrés, but also like you're also supposed to be stupid. I'm just supposed to be able to trick you. I'm a fae. I was giving you food. I already told you this. Why don't you like me? And also, why do you like him? Like the fact that she's human, I don't think Tamlin has that many interactions with human and so doesn't know how to speak to them or relate to them. It's just different when you're talking to somebody that lives 60 years versus somebody that lives 600 years. But also, maybe he's even coming to terms with the fact that she can't read, but she's smart enough to see through me. What does that say about Tamlin?
I think it's on both sides. And I think part of it is with Tamlin, we also see he is not going to treat humans the way his father treated humans. So we get the idea almost immediately, which is true, that his father was on the other side. That we at this point, we don't even know that there were any Fae that were working with the humans, but we find out that his father did bad things to humans. But it reminds me of Feyre, who went into this with hate in her heart and killed the Fae, and would have killed the wolf if she knew it was a Fae. She didn't care. But then she's starting to realize that it's easier to hate one person or a group of people rather than the one. I think that's coming from Tamlin's side now. It's easier to view humans as stupid and a certain way versus when you have one in here who has killed a Fae. She has snuck the bread knife. She's trying to better herself. She's not what he expected. And that's both a good and bad thing for him. Yeah.
How do you think in the future it plays in that after he tried all of this effort, time, and investment into Feyre, she falls for Rhys? And then he doesn't want to be like his dad, but then he also doesn't want to be like Rhys because of what happened to his mom and the rest of his family, right? So like he doesn't want to be like his dad and be mean to humans, doesn't want to be like Rhys, who, you know, did the things to his family. And all of this centers around Feyre, who he ends up like crazy toxically in love with. How much does that mess with his mind that turns him into the character that we see in later books, where he's just running around as a beast and not even turning into human form anymore and just going absolutely wild and letting his whole court go to unkempt, to put it politely?
I think it's interesting because he doesn't want to end up like his father, but he still teams up with Hybern. He still teams up with the side that his father would have sided with. All because of Feyre.
Such a little human had such a big effect.
Yeah. I just had a couple of things that I wanted to mention as far as foreshadowing. So on page 101 is Feyre's first nightmare, which is one of her first trauma responses. She has nightmares throughout the books, but there's a shadow in her dream that observes her. And I think SJM has confirmed that is Rhys, but Rhys later says he could see into her dreams. And then in page 132, when she's shooting the arrow, it shoots like a shooting star, which is a sign of the Night Court. Why wasn't the tip of the arrow as sharp as a rose's thorn? Why wasn't it something Spring Court related? Why is the thing that is going to save her life a shooting star?
I have the same thing written down as one of my extra points. I don't even know why. It's because it's a Night Court nod.
Sure. I think so. I also have, I think I've already mentioned it today, but on page 108, Lucien says to Tamlin, "You're going to end up living out there," meaning the Spring Court, which he does. And on page...
Yeah, he does.
On page 129, the Suriel says to Feyre, "If you keep digging, you're going to be devoured by shadow." She does get destroyed by darkness. Amarantha kills her. I mean, I think these are all just vague little nods to what we can expect to happen.
Okay, my last thoughts. Are Maeve and Amarantha both versions of Valg?
It's a good question. I've said it last time. I'm really excited to meet Amarantha.
Last thought for me. Why, when Lucien is telling Feyre how to catch a Suriel, does he not mention the cloak? Why? Does he not know?
Yeah.
And also, I think when we take into account that all these chapters are told from Feyre's perspective, right? Why, if they're told from Feyre's perspective, do we understand the plot to be that Lucien says he's going to come help her, but then Tamlin is chasing the Naga, and Tamlin comes and helps her, and Tamlin saves her? How do I not assume, if this is coming from Feyre's perspective, that Tamlin and Lucien did not maybe pre-discuss the plan of, like, Lucien says to her, I'm not going to tell Tamlin this because he would kill me if he knew I were helping you catch a Suriel. But also, what if that's actually not true and that's just one more lie to Feyre, and they do discuss it? And then there's these Naga. We don't know how the Naga got there. And we know that Tamlin's chasing them, and Tamlin ends up there being the hero of the day. Is that luck, or is that something that's planned? Because I think that if it was planned, that's the only reason Lucien doesn't tell Feyre about the cloak and how to actually catch a Suriel and, like, make it a safe environment, versus getting her in this environment where she then, like, shoots the Suriel free and, like, runs, and Tamlin has to save her, and then setting her up by saying, I'll come and rescue you, but we know he doesn't. Thoughts?
First of all, who tells her that it's the cloak? Is it Rhys?
I think it's the Weaver.
Okay. The Weaver or the Bone Carver?
One of the two, but I think it's obviously not Kashi or whatever his name is, because he's on the other continent. But I believe it's one of those two. I'm thinking it's the Weaver, but I could be wrong. I think the last time I reread ACOTAR was 2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, same. I remember Lucien saying to her in the next few chapters, yeah, I heard you. I just didn't come. I think he was going to let her get hurt, because I don't think he knew the Naga were there.
He was going to let her get hurt by the Suriel?
Because remember, he says, if you free it, you got to run and cross the river because it doesn't like crossing water. I think he didn't know the Naga were there, and I think he regrets it. But I can't remember. So it's something to pay attention to.
Which part does he regret? If he wanted her hurt, he regrets that she got out of it alive?
That he regrets that the Naga were there.
Why would he regret the Naga being there if he wanted her to get hurt?
Because they were going to kill her. I think he thought she could get away from the Suriel. I don't think he anticipated the Naga being there and that she couldn't get away from them.
To what end does he want her to get hurt by the Suriel but not get hurt by the Naga? Like, what's the end game there? What is his, as if we were in a murder trial, please tell me, what's that word called when you want something to happen? What's the motive? Like, I haven't watched true crime for decades. I can't remember the word motive. Jesus Christ. Please go.
I think you could make the argument he's still angry, and she's gotten away, clean for killing his friend, so he wanted maybe her to get roughed up. But maybe
hazing.
Sure. Maybe he did know that Tamlin was in the area. I've always thought that it was because he thought she just will get a little bit of a shock. Like, it's not as easy out there as she keeps thinking it is. But the Naga were not anticipated. Because later on, he tries to fight some Naga and he gets super injured. In book 2. I think he didn't know it was going to happen.
So the motive is to just teach her a small lesson about know your place, human?
Maybe.
Or I don't like you and you like me. You don't like Tamlin, but you do like me, but I want you to know I don't like you.
Maybe. I mean, I think we learned this in the next chapters. I feel like he says something to her. I remember them having the conversation about this in the next few chapters. I just haven't read them yet. So it's something to keep our eyes on.
Okay. Do we think at some point in time somebody will ask a Suriel about who Elaine's mate is or who Tamlin's mate is?
Do we need to ask them if she's a seer? I know usually if you have a seer, they can't see their own destiny, but could
if they can see someone else's destiny, it might include them. Mm-hmm. Does she know who her mate is already, and that's why she's rejecting Lucien?
Maybe.
And this is why she's so negative, because she knows it's Tamlin and hates him so much because she knows what Tamlin did to Feyre. And maybe why she's trying to be close to Azriel, not because she wants to be mates with him, but maybe she sees that he is a protector of her and will protect her against Tamlin until Tamlin's in a place where he can be ready to be her mates. What are your thoughts? Anything? Or should we just go?
I think if we have the next book be an Azriel book, because then that would finish off the Bat Boys and let us move on to others, then Azriel would not be in Elaine's book. But, well, I mean, he would be, but not like a main character. But I think I want to pay attention to her powers as a seer, because don't forget, Azriel's the one who figures it out.
Isn't there also a seer in Crescent City?
There's the ones that are put in the, like, tubes and have the water. Danica's sister, or the other alpha, is a seer. I don't think there's
But they
seers.
wouldn't have to see anything because they're in the future. Anyway, never mind. Done.
I think that's it. Those are all my biggies. I do want to just throw out, again, she thinks about the forgotten gods. How forgotten are they if she keeps praying to them?
Not that forgotten.
Not that forgotten. That was just my last thing. I don't think I've got anything else. Well, I think that finishes the episode then. Next week, we'll be reading chapters 16 through 20 of ACOTAR. And next week, we are introduced to some very beautiful people/person. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe below and wherever you get your podcast. We can also be found on Instagram and TikTok at SJ Masterclass and by email at sjmasterclass@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. So what do you think about our thoughts? Anything that you want to throw in that we forgot? Let us know in the comments and below.
All right. I think I'm done as well. Hey, Kat, do you want to go edit this episode and maybe grab some margs?
I'm dying for a margarita. I'll see you in 15.
Great. I'll see you in 15. Bye.
Bye.